Aquarius, welcome to your October 2020 Astro Transits update. It's Raina here. So this is a month where I see, with the Libra energy, new moon in Libra and the sun in Libra, this is compatible to you, fellow air sign, and that can be very nice for you. The sun in Libra is in an area of expansion, the ninth house, which is the house of the higher mind, the God house. When I say higher mind, we could be talking about education, like academia, or we could be talking about the spiritual version of that. This is the area of religion. It's considered the area of the law, so I would say studying the law specifically. This is also, to me, an area that can be very philosophical and positive, positively philosophical. So looking at the bigger picture and, if there are any things going on in your life that are not quite how you want them, and certainly you have a lot of energy in that 12th house, and that can be very intense. So being able to frame it with a philosophical kind of an outlook is certainly good. This is also the area of long distance travel. So broadening your mind, broadening your geographical reach can be all part of this area. And we have full moons that bookend the month. A full moon in Aries on the 1st and a blue moon on the 31st, on Halloween of all dates. So on the 1st, the full moon is at 9 degrees of Aries, and this falls in the 3rd house, which is Gemini's house in the universal chart, and this is an area that has to do with communication, the mind. You're an air sign, so you are acclimated to what this represents. So communication being anything that gets the news out. And so the media is connected to the 3rd house. In today's world, social media is a big part of that. So from what I understand, this includes the internet. The 11th house has traditionally been the internet because of the angle of technology ruling the 11th house, as well as the collective being the 11th house, so the masses. But the 3rd house certainly is our chief. The 3rd house can indicate communication, and our chief form of communication seems to be the internet. So that can also represent that area, but specifically you communicating and how you do it. This is also a house of teaching and learning, but unlike the 9th house, this is more of if it's school, it's not college, it's elementary school, and it can be tutoring, it can be like either maybe training, getting some kind of a training that has a certificate attached to it, although I heard an astrologer mentioning the 9th house with that, which I don't think that was correct. They might have made a mistake. I think the 3rd house is more of the practical knowledge. So, when you get those certificates or that those credentials, it's more because for your work, and it's not just for the love of learning itself. But the 3rd house can be learning in general. And a full moon here can bring news about something that either of a mundane variety, or this could be a spiritual download, an insight, because this is a very intuitive time. And the other thing, too, is you could be finishing a writing project. The The third house can be your siblings, finding out about them for some reason, or, even if you've had problems with them, maybe ceasing contact because of their behavior. Same with neighbors, learning about a neighbor, ceasing contact. On the 2nd, Venus goes into Virgo, and this is for you. Let me double check here. Oh yeah, this will be the 8th house. And the 8th house is the house of death, rebirth. It's the house of money, but other people's money, shared resources. So you and your spouse could get a raise. If this is some kind of an inheritance, because death plus money, other people's money equals inheritance, then maybe you're getting that money, or you're dealing with receiving it. Venus and transiting a certain house can mean that you receive money from that area. But just in general, I mean, dealing with other people's money as it relates to an inheritance. Maybe you are the, whatever you call that, the executor of the will, or whatever they call that, and you have to, handle the money, give it out to others. And yeah, maybe that's why you're cutting off contact with your sibling, because they're like freaking out somehow. In some cases, with the full moon in that area of siblings, and it's also aunts and uncles, by the way, and cousins, you could be learning what they're up to, because full moon can bring out secrets. And with Aries, I sometimes I don't talk about the flavor of that full moon, and it's very volatile. It's funny. Sometimes they talk about the full moon in certain signs, like Scorpio or something, as being very intense, and any water sign being emotional. But when it's in fire, like Aries, which has that Mars connection, which can, that warrior energy, it can be volatile. And Aries is very kind of impulsive, so we might be seeing a lot of that type of behavior in general in our society at that time, where people are acting out on emotion. So if there is some kind of conflict with your sibling, remember this, and remember that you don't have to be the one to kind of be rash about it. It's funny because, lecturing an Aquarian about being rash, it seems kind of absurd. But you might have your moon in Aries, and you might be a lot more volatile than, the typical Aquarius, or even like another fire energy, Leo, Sag. But the other thing about it is that you do have the ability to really just cut things off with people very suddenly if you decide to. You have that, I was going to say, cutting edge ability to cut things off. So just think about that. And on the 2nd, while I was talking about Venus going into Virgo in the 8th house, that's the very next day. So these two events could definitely be connected. And yeah, it could be some kind of money, a gift coming from somebody with Venus in the 8th house. If you have delved into astrology or the tarot, which is right up your alley, this is the area of the occult. You might be making money from it somehow. On the 4th, Pluto turns direct at 22 degrees of Capricorn in your 12th house. And this has been the dark night of the, I was going to say the dark night of the soul. Probably Saturn is more like that in a certain way, because Saturn is, I don't know. It's funny because comparing Saturn to Pluto is like, seems kind of almost similar sometimes. Saturn is also in your 12th house, and it's retrograding here temporarily, obviously. And today that I record this, Saturn has gone direct, but it's in your 12th house until December. But Pluto goes direct on the 4th, and I think that, strangely enough, this is going to be good for you, because when Pluto was retrograde in the 12th house, which is the house of karma, so past life influences, I was going to say coming to the surface, but how does something come to the surface in the 12th house when it's so much about the consciousness, the spiritual, the soul? How does that work? Well, Pluto retrograde is really about going within. The 12th house is a hermit house, so it's already within. By the way, when I said the word hermit, I saw that I was at 1111, and that is way cool. So my feeling is that you have either intentionally or unintentionally been dealing with psychological issues that go way, 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 way back, maybe even former lifetimes. You may not know that these are former lifetimes, or you may know that. You may have even been doing past life regression during this time. Some of you may have suddenly decided that this is what you should be doing. But in any case, that's more on the, the level of consciousness. But now, even in your world, on a mundane level, you may be seeing Pluto in the 12th house effects. Actually, what I feel is that Pluto going direct can be really great. And I think it can be great for your karma. It's already been in the 12th house since 2008. It's going to be here 3 more years. Actually, probably about 2.5 more years. So not everybody gets to have Pluto in the 12th house in their lifetime. So burning off karma, actually, I think it's more like, Pluto can be a very, such a purging effect that it helps you to do this, but in practical ways. I know the 12th house isn't practical, but Pluto direct, I feel like any events that come into your life's path after the 4th might be seen more in the lens of affecting your physical incarnation, if that makes any sense, more than just your soul is eternal, right? So that's good. I mean, you're going to be always dealing with things at that level, but on the physical level, your day-to-day events, that's what I was really getting at. So I hope that made some semblance of sense. On the 13th, Mercury goes retrograde at 11 degrees of Scorpio. Speaking of all these, Scorpio rules the 8th house. So talk about, things that are really intense. It's not something that, I mean, it's perfect for the month of October because the sun goes into Scorpio this month, but still. So for you, since Scorpio is a fixed sign, we're talking about one of the angular houses, and it's actually going to be your 10th house of career. And Mercury retrograde here can mean, we're talking about a retrograde, so you are going to be going within. On the more mundane level, miscommunication with people in positions of authority. This can be perhaps, what else can this be? Well, I mean, any kind of I would say even, I don't like to say work because I always think of the sixth house when I think of the workplace and stuff like that. But especially with people that are your, authority figures, some misunderstanding, if you're trying to, interview with somebody and it falls through, or you don't hear back from them, make sure you double check because maybe they didn't get it, or if there still are secretaries that exist in these companies, maybe they didn't take down the information correctly, who knows. But on an internal level, you may be rethinking what you're doing. And it is going to go back into Libra, as I recall. So we'll be going back into that house of philosophy. And so you may look at your career in the bigger picture. And this particular Mercury retrograde in the 10th house may take on a particular importance because of all the other things that have been going on in our society with the shutdown situation. And people may be feeling like, in light of everything that's happened, do I really feel that this is my path? Because this has just shown that anything can happen at any time. And also, maybe some of you have been meaning to break out on your own and you feel this sense of, or you have felt this sense of being under somebody else's thumb and their future is lying, in your hands. So these kinds of issues can come to the forefront. But I would say if you have been interviewing with a certain company, just wait because maybe there are some things that are going to get settled. Mercury will go direct on November 3rd. On the 16th, we have a new moon at 23 degrees of Libra, and that is going to be in that 9th house, so new outlook maybe. I don't know if you're planning on traveling and making plans for it. Maybe a new opportunity for that, long distance, and maybe it has to do with work. That's always a possibility. Are you taking a new college course? Do you have a new major in college? That kind of thing. A new spiritual path. On the 22nd, the sun goes into Scorpio. And so there, the sun goes into that career sector. Now, it is dealing with Mercury retrograde being there as well. So that kind of shows that your emphasis is going to be on career and whatever that means to you, however that plays out in your particular life right now. But that's the focus. On the 31st, that blue moon that I alluded to, full moon at 8 degrees of Taurus, another fixed sign. So we're talking about the opposite sign to Scorpio, opposite house. So the 4th house of home and family. Full moon here. Mother, something coming to a head, coming to culmination. Understanding something about your childhood. Maybe you're selling your house. I was even thinking that with the full moon in the 3rd house, you may be saying, I'm done with this area. I've lived here for a long time, but it just isn't the same anymore. I'm moving. And then you put your house up for sale on the market. So in any case, it can be emotional, the full moon in the 4th house, because you may be thinking of things very consciously from your childhood. That's one of the things, when I'm talking about these water houses, the 4th, 8th, and 12th houses, one thing that they have in common is that they may elicit an emotional reaction, but they all have their own whatever you'd call it, like specialties. So with the fourth house, it's looking at the past, looking at your roots, your family of origin. The eighth house, looking at your psyche, looking at your and other people's psyches and the motivation for why people do what they do, the mysteries of life, the hidden teachings, which is what a cult means, is hidden, which was kept from the masses. And just kind of like an aside there, I never bought that explanation when they said, oh, well, they kept it from the masses because they wouldn't understand. Well, even if, a lot of people don't understand trigonometry, that doesn't mean that they keep it from the masses. People just don't deal with it if they don't understand it. They kept it from people because they didn't want them to have that knowledge that they held the power, that they were not, they didn't have to be dependent on an outer clergy figure to be their middleman to God. And, this is the house of metaphysics. And things that go bump in the night. Kind of paranormal stuff. Perfect for Halloween, right? And the 12th house is the house of past lives. So I've heard it, described as a house of mental health. And while that is true, I think of the 8th house as more psychology and our psychological machinations. The 12th house I think of as it could be the subconscious and unconscious minds, but how past lives have influenced it. So the kind of the patterns that we bring into this lifetime are samskaras, as the Buddhists call it. And, it's the house of self-undoing. So this is why when I say you have Saturn there, you have Pluto there, you're dealing with a lot of having to confront this in one way or the other. Whether, this is a house of the dream state. So maybe you've been having a lot of intense dreams or nightmares. I don't know. It would be interesting to know how some of you have been navigating this, these heavy hitters in the 12th house. So anyway, that's what I have for you, Aquarius. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you would like a private reading, please click on the link below to find out more details. Take care. Bye.